The invitation arrived in the mail on Tuesday. At first, Rose thought it was another credit card offer and was about to throw the envelope in the trash. But something caught her attention. There was no stamp on the envelope. A black envelope with no return address, with a gold embossed label. Mr. and Mrs. Chris. Confidentially. Rose was intrigued. She carefully opened the thick envelope and took out a heavy card with gold embossing. Turning it over several times, searching for any sign of the sender, she slowly read the cursive message. A close but anonymous personal acquaintance has recommended that you receive an invitation to an exclusive private party. This case cannot be discussed at this time. I want to assure you that any concerns about the legality of this invitation are unfounded. This is not a trick or advertising. Your expectations for the evening will surely be exceeded. The party will take place on the 1st of May at 20 o'clock sharp. The dress is semi-formal. Due to the exclusive nature of this invitation, your immediate attention is critical. Please respond to the number below as soon as possible. Then you will be provided with additional information. Sincerely, your owner. How mysterious, Rose thought. She turned the card over a few more times, but didn't find any clues. Finally, with a sigh, she put the invitation aside, deciding to discuss it with her husband when he returned from work. William and Rose Chris lived a typical upper-middle-class suburban life. Both were in their 30s, attractive and outgoing. Rose enjoyed her role as a housewife and mother of 2 daughters, while William's career as an investment advisor was just beginning to take off. Although the family was not yet rich, they were very comfortable in their beautiful home in a quiet area with similar families. Their neighbors were friendly and sociable, but with the advent of children, William and Rose stayed at home more often, only occasionally meeting with friends or having rare dates. Life has become routine and predictable. Although neither Rose nor William complained about it, they occasionally thought that maybe it would be nice to add a little variety. Even in the bedroom, the couple's relationship remained stable and satisfactory. They made love regularly, usually on weekends, and both felt devotion and affection for each other. There were no serious problems in their marriage, and neither of them ever thought about infidelity. However, if asked to be honest, both would agree that there was something missing in their lives, something that they could not define or explain. "I have no idea what it could be," William said as he looked at the invitation that evening. "Perhaps this is some kind of advertising gimmick or something related to real estate, or maybe another Amway scheme. But there's no postmark or return address. It's strange." "I know," Rose agreed, "but it ended up in our mailbox along with other letters. Do you think someone brought it personally?" "Perhaps. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe I should call and find out what's going on. I'd like to know who sent it." Rose couldn't stop thinking about the invitation all day. The thought that it might be legal had certainly crossed her mind, and honestly, the idea was exciting. It had been a long time since they had been to a real party. An elegant, exclusive gathering to dress up for could be just what was needed. "Of course, it's worth finding out what we're talking about," she finally said. William dialed the number, and a deep male voice immediately answered. "Yes? This is William Chris. I received an invitation to a party and—" "Yes, of course, Mr. Chris," a voice interrupted him. "Thank you for your quick response. We sincerely hope that you and your wife will not have conflicts this evening. May I confirm your presence?" "Wait," William said, slightly annoyed. "I have a few questions. What kind of event is this? Who are you and how do you know my name? You should know that we are not interested in any commercial offers or timeshare opportunities." "I assure you, Mr. Chris, that the party has nothing to do with sales or marketing. In fact, nothing will be required from you except your presence. Enjoyment of your company is all that is expected. This is a very exclusive party to which you and your wife have been specifically recommended and invited. You should feel privileged. I'm sure you'll enjoy the evening immensely. Who are you and who recommended us?" "Unfortunately, This information is confidential to protect the privacy of our guests. I can only say that this is a person you trust." "I don't like surprises," William said sharply. "This all seems strange." "I understand your concern, Mr. Chris. I assure you that you have nothing to worry about. This will be one of the most enjoyable and unique evenings of your life. Do I confirm your presence?" "Wait a second." William covered the receiver with his hand and looked at his wife, who was listening attentively to the conversation. "He says everything is legal and that we will have fun, but it doesn't explain who he is and why we were chosen. I don't know. What do you think?" "It sounds a little creepy, but intriguing at the same time. I guess if it turns out to be fake, we can always leave," Rose said thoughtfully. "What do we have to lose?" William thought for a moment, then returned to the conversation. "Yes, okay, we will accept the invitation, but I hope it's not a prank. When and where?" "The 1st of May at 8 in the evening. Congratulations on your decision. Drinks and dinner will be served, followed by live entertainment. The dress is semi-formal. Do you need to write down the address?" "Yes, wait. Okay, speak up." "Address, 1590 1 Peacock Way. Are you familiar with this area?" William immediately realized that this was a very prestigious part of their city. He had several acquaintances and clients living there. "Yes, I know where it is." "Wonderful. When you arrive, you will be asked for a password to ensure confidentiality and prevent unauthorized access. The password is royal. Please do not share this information with anyone. It's clear?" "Yes, I think it's clear," William replied, although doubts were still swirling in his head. "Great," said the voice. "You won't regret coming. This will be an unforgettable evening for you and your wife. We look forward to your presence. Good evening." The line went dead. William and Rose spent a lot of time talking about mysterious events. William was still convinced that it was all a hoax. Although Rose shared her husband's doubts, she was also excited about the upcoming lavish party. It seemed fun and exciting, and she already started planning a new outfit. The bustle of everyday life almost made the couple forget about the upcoming event. Rose managed to hire a nanny and, after sneaking out one day, purchased a form-fitting cocktail dress and several accessories. When the day of the party arrived, the young woman took the time to get a full makeover at an upscale spa and beauty salon. She felt refreshed and beautiful. Her hair and makeup were flawless, and she was excited about the evening ahead. William slowly researched the information about the party, trying to find out who sent the invitation or who recommended them. But he found nothing. No one knew anything specific. And finally he accepted that he would only know the whole truth when he came to the event. That evening, Rose stood in front of the full-length mirror, getting ready to go out. She purchased several new lingerie items at Victoria's Secret, was a black satin thong and bra set that looked amazing on her slender figure. Rose was truly charming. She was 5 feet 4 inches tall, had dark hair in a pageboy cut, soft curls, and looked gorgeous. For the evening, her hair was neatly combed back with an antique comb clip and cascaded down her graceful neck. Her eyes sparkled with green fire. At 34, Rose stayed in great shape through exercise and healthy eating. She had soft features and a fresh look that made her face almost girlish, but her figure was seductive and feminine, with high, firm breasts that peeked out from under her shiny bra. Her stomach was flat and toned, and her skin was a natural tan. After his shower, William walked into the bedroom and couldn't help but smile as he saw his wife transform. He looked at her exquisite features with admiration as she dressed. He noticed how beautiful her figure looked in her tiny black dress that showed off her graceful legs. Rose turned and smiled at him over her shoulder. "Are you happy?" "Yeah, something new?" "Oh, it's just an old thing I found," she joked. "It wasn't expensive." "I see," he replied, knowing that her taste was always on point. "Although, even in something from a second-hand store, you would look amazing." "Oh, monsieur, you manage to flatter in any situation," she said, accessorizing her look with a short black sequined jacket. After giving instructions to the nanny, William and Rose set out to find the place. Soon, they were racing through an exclusive neighborhood surrounded by lush grounds and manicured lawns. The further they drove along Peacock Way, the more impressive the surroundings became. The gates and walls became taller, and the houses more magnificent. They eventually reached number 1591. The sun was already setting when they drove through the majestic gates onto a long alley. Slowly, they drove past a huge estate with giant trees, lawns, and a variety of flowers. Their assigned home had magnificent architecture, almost like a hotel. The external spotlights were already illuminating the building with a soft glow, and the chandelier inside the giant arch that served as the entrance sparkled. There was a large fountain right in front of the house, and around it there was a parking lot where several expensive cars were already parked. A uniformed valet waited to accept William and Rose's keys. "Well, I've seen better," William joked, but even he was amazed by the sight. Having given the keys, they headed down the long corridor to the huge entrance doors. Before they could knock, the door swung open to reveal a handsome young man in a butler's uniform. "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. N.K. May I ask for the password?" Rose and William were amazed that the stranger seemed to know them. At least he had some information about them. William looked into the man's deep blue eyes, as if trying to size him up. "Royal," he finally said. "Excellent. Thank you. Please follow me." The man led them into the house along a long, dimly lit corridor. Rose and William looked around the interior with special attention, admiring the beautiful furniture and decorations of the mansion. Eventually, they entered a large room, which turned out to be a library. Every wall, from the floor to the high ceiling, was lined with books, neatly arranged on tall oak shelves. In the center of the room, there were soft leather chairs and sofas for reading and relaxing. It was a cozy place. There were already several couples in the room, quietly talking to each other. The waiters served cocktails and appetizers. William instantly looked around those present, trying to determine if there were any familiar faces among them. All the guests seemed to be about the same age, around 30, and looked successful, attractive, and wealthy. There were 3 or 4 couples. And then William suddenly saw someone familiar. It was Mickey, William's friend, with whom they often played racquetball. Mickey noticed them too and waved with a smile. However, before they could approach Mickey, the butler returned to them, holding 2 jewelry boxes. "A gift from the host. Please put them on and wear them throughout the evening. This is your badge of identification. It is customary in this house to address each other only by their initials to ensure confidentiality. I hope you will respect this rule." Something mysterious again. William and Rose exchanged glances as they opened the boxes. Inside were gold medallions engraved with the initials of their names, attached to satin ribbons. William received purple, and Rose received pink. They put on their pendants and headed to Mickey, or M, as he was called here. "Welcome, glad to see you," Mickey said enthusiastically, smiling widely. "I'm so glad you came. I've been waiting for this for a long time." He hugged them both warmly. "Do you remember my wife?" The couples exchanged greetings and hugs. "What's going on here?" William finally asked. "Who owns this house?" "I'm afraid I can't tell you, my friend," Mickey replied. "But you and your wife are in for an amazing time tonight. You have no idea how hard it was to get to this party. I had to work hard to get you here." "Thank you, but I have a lot of questions." "Who are all these people?" William asked, still stunned. "And why is everyone so strict about protecting their privacy? Using only initials is kind of weird." "Trust me," Mickey grinned. "Everything will become clear soon. For now, just enjoy the moment. Meet the other guests. This place is amazing, isn't it? You probably didn't expect this." "We had no idea what would happen," Rose exclaimed. "But of course you're right. This place is impressive. You haven't seen everything yet." Mickey smiled. His wife winked at William as they went to meet the other guests. William watched them, secretly admiring Mickey's wife. who was dressed in a sparkling gold dress. William always thought Mandy was beautiful. She was taller than Rose, by 5 to 7 years, with long blonde hair and eyes that seemed to flirt with him every time they met. Mandy had a stunning figure with perky breasts and a slender waist that stood out provocatively under her tight dress. William stared after her until Rose winked at him and playfully hit him on the shoulder. There were only 2 couples in the room. William and Rose soon met and chatted briefly with both of them. S was a large, stern man who resembled a former football player. Essie's firm hand shook William's hand firmly, and then S surprised Rose by taking her small hand in his huge one and kissing it lightly. His brown eyes gazed into hers, and he smiled warmly. Rose was immediately captivated by his friendly manner and couldn't help but smile at him when he introduced his wife, T, a beautiful red-haired woman. William and T chatted for a few minutes before S turned his attention back to Rose. "Welcome, greetings," S politely greeted, smiling at Rose. She loved the way his eyes crinkled slightly when he smiled, leaving a tan around them. The gray on the sides of his sandy hair gave him a special charm, Rose thought. He really was an attractive man. "Yes, this is our first time here," she replied. "This is also mysterious, don't you think? Do you know the owners?" S laughed. "I'm not sure either of us really knows the other very well. We've been to a few of these parties, but like you said, it's all quite mysterious. That's what makes it so exciting. Do you agree?" "Yeah, really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing what else happens," Rose said. "Me too," S answered quietly, again looking at her so that her knees buckled. Another couple, J and V, entered the room. They were a black husband and wife, very attractive and almost exotic, like the rest of the party. William and Rose found out that they were also here for the first time and were just as dumbfounded as they were. J was a large man, very muscular and tall, about 6 feet 5 inches. William thought he was probably a former athlete. V was voluptuous and provocative. She wore a beautiful multicolored dress that showed off her curvaceous figure and caught the attention of every man in the room with her graceful movement. Rose and William had not yet seen entered the library. He was large, muscular, completely bald, and wore a uniform reminiscent of the butler they met at the door. The man walked to the middle of the small group and rang a bell, getting their attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, I greet you on behalf of your master," began Mr. Doran. "Allow me to extend my warmest greetings and gratitude for your participation in this evening. My name is Mr. Doran, and I represent the owner of this estate, who regrets that he cannot be with you in person this evening. However, I am confident that we can provide you comfort and pleasure in his absence. Some of you may be here for the first time, and we offer you our warmest congratulations and wishes for a memorable evening. In a few minutes, dinner will be served in the adjacent dining room, and then you will be treated to special entertainment in the ballroom. But before we get to that, I have some additional information and instructions to share with you. Please keep this request in mind. Use our initial medallions when communicating with each other. Thank you for your attention. So, ladies and gentlemen, bon appétit." They were led into a spacious and luxuriously decorated dining room, where the first courses of the feast were already offered on a large table. An excellent lunch served by attentive and polite staff was a delight for all guests. Couples were allowed to sit together, but at short intervals, to allow them to communicate more freely and get to know each other. Rose and William were placed at opposite ends of the table, but they glanced at each other from time to time, enjoying the food and company. Rose was especially glad that her lunchmate was S, a man with good looks and pleasant conversation, which made her feel really young and cheerful. When everyone was enjoying the magnificent dessert, Mr. Doran appeared before them again and rang the bell. "I hope you enjoyed your dinner. Is everyone satisfied?" The guests smiled and nodded their heads in approval. The food was really wonderful. "Very well," Doran continued. "Let me share with you a few additional instructions before the evening's entertainment begins. Especially those of you who are here for the first time should pay attention. In the ballroom, you will be seated in pairs, man and wife. When the entertainment begins program, ladies, after the bell, please move to the next seating area on your left, and so on in a circle. Gentlemen, remain seated throughout the entire performance. This seating method will help you get to know each other better. I hope you will have the opportunity to enjoy the company of your neighbor. The entertainment we will offer will be stimulating. Feel free to express your feelings. However, if you feel uneasy, you can always leave the room. Please respect the wishes and feelings of other guests. Is that clear? The couples looked at each other again, expressing their agreement, but this time not so energetically. William and Rose, as well as J and V, were a little tense after hearing such strange instructions. The secrecy and mystery of this place and events gave them mixed feelings. However, the other guests seemed to take it all in stride, so they simply nodded in agreement. Great, Doran smiled. So, if you follow me to the ballroom? They walked down the hallway and entered a room that, despite its name, was far from a typical ballroom. The decor was luxurious, and the candlelight created an amazing atmosphere. In the middle of the room stood a circular platform or stage, approximately 2 feet high and 10 feet wide, surrounded by a floor-to-ceiling black velvet curtain. Couples sat with their companions in comfortable leather love seats, located next to the stage to the north, south, east, and west, facing towards the curtain. After everyone had taken their seats, Doran walked to the door and rang the bell again. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to remember the instructions that I gave you earlier. So, distinguished guests, we present to you the newlyweds. As Doran retreated to the door and closed it, the sounds of pleasant classical music grew louder and the curtain began to rise. The spotlights above the stage dimmed and the king-size bed was brightly illuminated. As the curtain rose, black shoes, tuxedo pants, and a young man sitting in a chair by the bed appeared. Then a beautiful young woman in a wedding dress and veil appeared before the eyes of the guests. The newlyweds were very young, about 19 or 20, and radiated light. He was handsome and slender, with blue eyes, blonde hair, and a tanned face. She was charming and attractive, with long dark hair and a beautiful white wedding dress. The bride looked at her husband with excitement, and their mutual attraction did not go unnoticed. The guests watched the action with admiration. The girl gracefully got out of bed and began to move to the beat of the music, taking off her veil and gloves. She then slowly removed her dress, beginning a striptease while continuing to move gracefully. The young man smiled from ear to ear, happily surprised as the beautiful bride continued her dance and undressing. As the top of the dress slid down her tiny waist, revealing her sexy white lingerie, she giggled as she removed it completely, leaving her in a sparkly white camisole that showed off her seductive cleavage. Continuing her seductive dance, the bride took off her shoes and approached the young man. He watched her every move, and as she slowly knelt down in front of him, his eyes remained glued to her. Rose sat, hypnotized, watching what was happening. She couldn't take her eyes off this provocative scene. Although she and William had watched a few explicit movies on cable television, nothing compared to what was happening in front of them live. But at the same time, Rose felt vague feelings. Her religious upbringing might have made her feel guilty for attending such an event, but she knew that wasn't the case. She squeezed William's hand, responding to every arousal coursing through her body. And now it was clear to her that this excited her greatly. William was also amazed by what was happening. Despite his suspicions about this party, he had not expected anything like this. They continued to paw at each other, forgetting the other guests, until a bell rang in the room. Rose felt panicked. According to the instructions, they were supposed to move to the next seat on the left, but she couldn't imagine doing that in this state with someone she barely knew. "Oh, William," she whispered, "what should we do?" William began to have vague thoughts that paralleled what Rose was experiencing. They were both enticed by this entertainment, almost to the point from which there was no return. Perhaps this was the intent, to to push couples to the limit of sexual desire so that the party turned into an orgy. This thought made William think that he and his wife might be involved in something like this. He had never imagined that he would come to this, and now he was confused. When he saw T standing in front of him, he felt that this was a moment of true determination. "I think I should be here right now." The red-haired guy seemed flustered and flushed. William looked at Rose, and at that moment he imagined images of his wife with someone else. He had never thought about it, and he didn't like it, but everything was happening too quickly, and he made a decision. "It's okay, honey," he said, hearing his words. "Let's follow this." Rose looked puzzled and a little scared as she slowly stood up to move to the next seat. There were moans and sighs behind her as she approached Mickey, and he smiled welcomingly. "Enjoying the show?" he asked. Rose sat down in her new seat, not taking her eyes off the stage. The bride was lying on the bed, her chest bouncing slightly as she moved. The young groom looked at her, smiling with lust, and took off his clothes. "It's really intriguing, isn't it?" whispered Monsieur Rose, without looking at him, nodded in response. "Yes, I have never seen anything like this." Rose's heart was pounding in her chest, barely allowing her to breathe. She watched with alarm as the young man began to gently kiss and lick his partner's leg, starting at her ankle and moving up to her tender inner thigh. Next to Rose was Mickey Sullivan, known as M. He no longer paid attention to the scene, knowing that there was little time left before the bell rang, and decided to make the best of it. This was the moment he had long hoped for when he invited William and Rose Chris to this party. Mickey has long dreamed of seducing Rose, the innocent and attractive wife of his friend William, and now the time has come to take the first step. While William received seduction lessons from T, a tall and seductive red-haired woman, his wife sat next to him, watching the newlyweds pleasure each other on stage. Rose whispered in William's ear, telling him she was feeling naughty and asking if he would mind if she played a little. William winced as he felt Rose's hand grab him and place it on her warm thigh. The thought flashed through his mind that he was doing something wrong. Rose looked at the scene in front of her as if in a trance. Mickey slowly approached her, carefully examining her bare thighs, and carefully put his arm around her shoulder so as not to scare her. When Rose showed no resistance to his advances, Mickey lightly touched her knee, carefully watching her reaction. Rose was drunk with desire, and her head was spinning. She felt a hand begin to slowly slide up her leg, but it didn't disturb her lust-filled mind until her dress was gently pushed to the side. Rose involuntarily looked down and saw a man's hand lightly stroking her bare skin. Raising her eyes, she dreamily met Mickey's smiling face. "Let me help you," she heard him say. Mickey moved even closer to her and gently took her hands to remove them from her lap. His eyes captured her charm. William sat back on the sofa and watched the young couple on stage, engrossed in each other. He felt joy, but then he remembered Rose. Turning, he saw her gaze, her mouth, which was breathing heavily. He began to feel irritated, but soon realized that he had no reason to be. After all, he himself invited Rose to sit next to another man. He just watched, not knowing what to do. The chime sounded again. In the fog of her thoughts, Rose felt she needed to move. The man next to her helped her up, telling her they would finish this later. He adjusted her dress and walked her to another sofa. On stage, the newlyweds continued their passionate scene. Rose moved trembling through the dim light until she noticed a silhouette looming in the darkness. Jay sat watching her approach with his sharp eyes, like a big cat ready to pounce on its prey. Although he sat relaxed in his chair, he looked imposing, with his jacket and shirt unbuttoned, showing off his smooth skin and muscles. Understanding her hesitation, Jay extended his hand. In a calm voice, he said, "Come, sit with me. Don't be afraid. Let me please you." She carefully let him take her hand and sat down next to him. On the other side of the platform, William was also experiencing his own mixed emotions. Jay's wife, V, took a seat next to Rose. He smiled nervously at her, noticing her nervousness and slight excitement. Remembering that she, like him, was in such a situation for the first time, William decided to express his concern. "Are you okay?" V met his gaze for the first time and smiled faintly. "Yes, I think. But, my God, I definitely didn't expect this." "We too," agreed William, discovering a commonality of feelings. "It's all so strange, isn't it? But at the same time, I've never felt so excited." He almost regretted saying it out loud, but V smiled warmly back at him, and he couldn't help but appreciate her exotic beauty. "Me too," she whispered, and they both smiled. She began to appreciate the pleasant personality and attractive features of this man she was sitting next to. His soft eyes, easy smile, strong jaw, and body proportions ignited a fire in her that began on stage and now raged in the soul of this sophisticated ex-footballer. Baby, yes." V broke the kiss and moaned. Meanwhile, Jay, V's husband, tried to restrain himself, not giving in to Rose's wariness. The white-skinned beauty was clearly tense, but he noticed how her interest in him grew, and it only took a few convincing words for her to surrender to his strength and masculine charm. Although she pretended to follow the action on stage, he felt her gaze on him. Leaning towards her, he whispered, "You've never seen a man this big before, right?" "Never," she admitted, barely making a sound. Rose turned cautiously and met his gaze. "I had no idea that a man could be so big." Her voice sounded like that of a little girl standing next to a giant. "It's all right," he said soothingly. She felt like she wanted to touch him. Desperately. Leaning towards her, he extended his hand and gently pulled her towards him. The ringing interrupted their momentary moment. Rose took his hand gratefully to stand, wearing only her high heels and the medallion around her neck. She remembered who she was waiting for at the next stop, and this caused excitement. Silently thanking Jay, she took her wrinkled dress and headed to her intimate date. S stood in front of her, waiting. He also took off his clothes, and her heart began to beat faster as she looked at him. His whole appearance attracted her, from his warm smile to his unique eyes, as if penetrating into the very heart. He was built like a Greek god, massive shoulders, strong arms and chest, tapering to a hard, flat stomach with defined muscles. Rose took off her dress and threw herself into his arms. They silently came together in a passionate kiss, causing a flash in her mind. "Please don't torture me," she whispered. He fulfilled her request. It was better than she could have imagined. A little away from them, William Chris watched his wife passionately embrace another man. The strange whirlwind ended. All couples tried each other. On the platform, Mr. Doran, naked again, joined in the erotic performance. Rose's husband looked at what was happening around him with orgiastic anxiety. The room was filled with the sounds and smells of sex. Everywhere he looked, naked bodies intertwined, bending and merging. Time seemed to slow down, and William closed his eyes, trying to remember how he got here. Epilogue. A few days later, Rose Chris found a shiny black envelope in her mailbox. Inside was a videotape that said, "Party," and a small note. A smile bloomed on her lips as she read, "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Here's a little souvenir from our evening for you to look at and enjoy. We look forward to seeing you at the next party. Sincerely, your host." Rose felt a slight shiver run down her spine as she hurried towards the video player.